Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that something's off in your relationship, but you just couldn't prove it? Maybe she's been acting differently, more distant, more secretive, but when you bring it up, she just brushes it off. You tell yourself it's nothing. You don't want to seem paranoid. But deep down, that voice inside you keeps asking, what if I'm right? Hey, I'm Mark, and today, we're going to break down 6 undeniable signs that a woman might be cheating on you, all from a Stoic perspective. Now, before you jump to conclusions, understand this: Stoicism is not about reacting emotionally. It's about seeing things as they are, not as we want them to be. Too many men ignore the signs. They live in denial, hoping things will magically go back to how they were. But a Stoic man doesn't run from the truth, he faces it with clarity and reason. Because here's the reality: women rarely cheat by accident. There are always signs. Subtle at first, but they're there. And if you don't recognize them early, by the time you do, it'll be too late. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to look for. Not just the obvious red flags, but the small, hidden shifts in her behavior that most men overlook. And trust me, once you see these signs for what they are, you'll never unsee them. Before we dive in, take a second to subscribe if you're ready to master relationships with the wisdom of Stoicism. This channel is about clarity, self-mastery, and never being blindsided again. Now, let's start with one of the biggest signs that something isn't right: emotional distance. A woman who once confided in you, shared her thoughts, and was engaged in your relationship suddenly becomes cold, distant, and uninterested. She stops asking about your day. Conversations feel forced, like she's just going through the motions. The warmth in her voice? Gone. The excitement when she sees you? Fading. At first, you might think she's just stressed or dealing with something personal. But here's where most men make a mistake: they ignore patterns. They assume things will go back to normal. Let me give you 2 scenarios. In a healthy relationship, a woman who is going through something difficult, whether it's stress from work, family issues, or personal struggles, will still trust you enough to open up. She might be distant for a short period, but when you ask what's wrong, she'll eventually let you in. But if she's emotionally checked out, it's a whole different story. She avoids deep conversations. When you ask, what's wrong, she gives vague responses like, I'm just tired, or nothing, I'm fine. But it's not fine. She's disengaged. And this isn't just for a day or 2, it's a consistent pattern. Now, here's where Stoicism comes in. The Stoics believe that relationships must be built on honesty and openness. Marcus Aurelius taught that we must observe people's actions, not just their words. If her behavior has changed and she refuses to communicate, you must see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." In other words, a woman who is truly committed to you will not need to be convinced to stay engaged in the relationship. If she consistently shuts you out, it may be because her attention is elsewhere. So, what should you do? Stay calm. Observe. Take note of her behavior over time. Don't accuse. Don't beg. The more you chase, the more distant she'll become. Instead, focus on gathering the truth, because the truth always reveals itself. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Emotional distance is often just the beginning. In many cases, it's followed by another telltale sign: sudden changes in habits and behavior. Let's talk about that next. Here's the thing: people are creatures of habit. The way we live, the routines we follow, and the decisions we make are all reflections of what we value. So when a woman suddenly starts changing her habits, especially in ways that don't add up, it's time to pay attention. Let me paint you a picture. For the last 2 years, she's had the same schedule: work, gym, dinner with you, maybe some time with her friends on the weekends. Everything has been predictable. But suddenly, things shift. She starts staying out later than usual. She's going to work events that she never mentioned before. Her usual gym sessions become late-night workouts. or she randomly starts going out with new friends you've never heard of. At first, you want to be supportive. After all, people grow, and change is normal. But here's where you have to think like a Stoic. Epictetus said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." The same applies here. Change in itself isn't suspicious, but change that lacks explanation or consistency is. Let's break it down. A woman in a healthy relationship might start a new hobby or pick up a new routine, but she'll likely include you in the process. She'll tell you about it, maybe even invite you to join her. There's no secrecy, no hesitation. But a woman who's hiding something, her explanations will feel vague, rehearsed, or just slightly off. For example, you ask why she's suddenly staying out so late, and she says, "I just needed some fresh air," but she never used to do that before. You ask who she's with, and she gives a hesitant answer, something like, "Oh, just some people from work," but she won't name anyone. She starts guarding her time fiercely, making plans without checking in, and getting defensive if you question her. This is where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius taught that we must judge actions, not just words. A person's character is revealed in what they do, not what they say. If her behavior shifts suddenly and without reason, don't ignore it. Trust your observations, not your emotions. And this brings us to another major red flag. When a woman is trying to impress someone new, one thing almost always follows: a sudden and extreme concern for her appearance. Look, every woman wants to look good, that's normal. But when a woman suddenly reinvents her entire look out of nowhere, with no clear reason, it's worth paying attention to. Here's what I mean. For the past few years, her style has been pretty consistent, maybe casual, maybe professional, but always in a way that fits her personality. She puts in effort, but she's not obsessed with looking perfect every time she walks out the door. Then, seemingly overnight, everything changes. She suddenly starts hitting the gym 5 days a week when she never cared about it before. She buys new, more revealing clothes that don't match her usual taste. She begins spending twice as long doing her hair and makeup just to run errands. And here's the key part: you're not the reason. She's not dressing up for date nights with you. She's not hitting the gym to work out together. If anything, she's doing all this in a way that excludes you. Now, let's be clear, self-improvement is not a crime. Maybe she genuinely wants to feel better about herself. But remember what the Stoics teach us: pay attention to patterns, not excuses. Let's look at two different scenarios. A woman in a healthy relationship decides to improve herself, but she includes you in the journey. She talks about wanting to feel healthier, maybe asks if you want to go to the gym with her. Her new style is something she's excited to share with you. She asks for your opinion. She enjoys dressing up for your dates. But a woman who's mentally checked out, she gets defensive if you ask about the sudden changes. She downplays it. "What? I just felt like switching things up." She starts posting more selfies online, but barely sends any to you. When you compliment her, her reaction feels off, like she wasn't dressing up for you in the first place. This is where Stoicism gives us clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, who we are inside is reflected in our actions. A woman who is loyal and invested in you doesn't need a secret reason to look her best. But if she's putting in all this effort and you don't feel included in the process, there's a chance she's trying to impress someone else. And here's the thing: when people start hiding things, they start protecting their personal space. Suddenly, she's more protective over her phone, her social media, her private life. The woman who once left her phone face up on the table now flips it over every time she puts it down. She used to casually scroll through messages in front of you, but now she tilts the screen away or keeps it out of sight. She changes her passcode, starts locking doors when she never used to, gets defensive when you ask simple questions. And here's the key part: you're not imagining it. At first, you might think you're overreacting. After all, everyone deserves privacy. But there's a difference between reasonable privacy and suddenly acting like she has something to hide. Let's take two different women. A woman in a healthy relationship has nothing to hide. Sure, she has her personal space, everyone does, but she's not overly secretive about it. If you casually pick up her phone to check the time, she doesn't flinch. If you ask who she was texting, she answers naturally, without hesitation. But a woman who's hiding something, she suddenly puts her phone on silent all the time. She stops leaving it out in the open when she showers or goes to the kitchen. If she gets a notification and you glance at her screen, she locks it instantly. When you ask, "Who was that?" she pauses before answering, like she's carefully choosing her words. And here's the thing, this isn't about paranoia. This is about Stoic observation. Seneca once said, "A guilty mind can never be at ease." When someone is at peace, they act naturally. They don't need to constantly cover their tracks or over-explain simple things. Their actions are open because they have nothing to fear. But when someone is guilty, they become defensive, secretive, closed off. And here's something most men don't realize, cheating isn't just physical. It starts with emotional disconnection, then secrecy, then deception. And once a woman starts living with that kind of mental conflict, it often leads to something else, picking unnecessary fights to justify her behavior. At the start of the relationship, things were smooth. Sure, you had disagreements, but they were reasonable. You could talk things out, find common ground, and move forward. But now, every little thing turns into a fight. You forgot to take out the trash. Suddenly, she's acting like you don't care about her at all. You ask how her day was, she rolls her eyes and says, "Why do you always ask me that?" You try to plan something nice, but she acts like it's a burden instead of a gesture. And here's the strange part, you didn't do anything differently. The shift is coming from her. There are two possible reasons a woman suddenly starts picking fights over nothing. One, she's trying to create emotional distance. If she's cheating or thinking about it, she needs a way to justify her actions. In her mind, if she can convince herself that you're the problem, she can excuse what she's doing. Two, she's trying to provoke you. Some women will start a fight just to push you into reacting emotionally. If she can get you to snap, yell, or say something hurtful, she can play the victim and shift the blame onto you. And let's be clear, this is not how a healthy woman acts. In a healthy relationship, disagreements happen, but they're about real things. If something bothers her, she brings it up calmly, with the goal of fixing the issue. But when a woman is emotionally checked out or feeling guilty about something, she twists minor things into major problems. She becomes overly critical of you, even in areas where she used to be supportive. She accuses you of things out of nowhere, sometimes even cheating, which is classic projection. She reacts aggressively when you try to de-escalate, as if she wants the fight to continue. And this is where Stoicism gives us clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. A Stoic man does not react emotionally when someone tries to provoke him. He observes. He remains calm. He does not let anger cloud his judgment. When a woman is picking fights for no reason, your instinct might be to defend yourself, to prove her wrong, to argue back. Don't. Instead, step back. Observe. See the pattern. Ask yourself, is this about me, or is something else going on? Because here's the truth, when a woman is mentally done with a relationship, she stops thinking about the future with you. Now, this is the final and most telling sign. When a woman is truly invested in a relationship, she naturally thinks ahead. She talks about future plans, trips you could take, goals you could reach together, even small things like what you'll do next weekend. But when she stops including you in her future, that's when you know something has shifted. At first, it might seem subtle. She stops bringing up vacations or things you both used to dream about. She avoids making long-term commitments, even for things as small as buying concert tickets a few months ahead. When you mention the future, her responses are vague or dismissive. Let's just see what happens. And the biggest red flag? She starts making future plans that don't involve you. She suddenly wants to travel alone or with friends she never talked about before. She mentions thinking about moving or making big changes, but never discusses how that would affect your relationship. A woman in a healthy relationship naturally weaves you into her future. She considers your thoughts, your presence, and your role in her life without even thinking about it. It's second nature. But a woman who is mentally checking out, she starts detaching from shared goals. She avoids serious relationship discussions, anything about marriage, moving in, or big commitments. She talks about her future as if she's single, even in small ways. If you try to make long-term plans, she seems uninterested or non-committal. And this is where Stoicism reveals the truth. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This means clarity leads to action. A woman who is truly committed to you will act accordingly. She will not hesitate to plan a future with you because you are part of her life. But a woman who is mentally or emotionally elsewhere, she will act accordingly, too. Even if she hasn't physically left yet, her mind is already gone. And here's the harsh reality: when a woman no longer sees a future with you, the relationship is already over. But here's the most important part: what do you do now? That's exactly what we're going to talk about in the finale. Now that we've gone through the 6 major signs of infidelity, the real question is, what do you do about it? Most men, when faced with this situation, react in one of 2 ways, and both are mistakes. They panic, become needy, and try to win her back. They beg for attention, overcompensate with gifts or affection, and try to remind her of how good things used to be. But a woman who is mentally checked out won't respond to this. If anything, it pushes her further away. They explode in anger, make accusations, or try to control her. They start checking her phone, questioning her every move, or trying to catch her in a lie. But this only makes them look insecure and weak. Even if she's cheating, your reaction should never be based on emotion. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control others, only ourselves. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. If a woman is pulling away, hiding things, or showing these signs, do not chase, do not beg, and do not react emotionally. 1. Gather evidence, but don't let it consume you. Observe, but don't become obsessed. If she is cheating, the truth will reveal itself without you having to force it. 2. Do not engage in unnecessary arguments. If she's creating drama, stay calm. A Stoic man does not get pulled into emotional manipulation. He observes, he listens, and he decides his next move with logic, not anger. 3. Know your worth. If she is cheating or even emotionally checking out, you have 2 choices. Have a mature conversation and see if there's any chance of repairing the relationship. If she continues to be dishonest or distant, walk away with dignity. For control what you can, your own growth. Whether she stays or goes, your life should not revolve around her. Focus on your own self-improvement, goals, and future. A Stoic man does not need validation from anyone. He builds his own value. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If you find yourself in a situation where your woman is cheating or no longer values the relationship, your response determines your power. If you react emotionally, you lose control. If you beg for her attention, you lose respect. If you quietly observe, make a decision, and move forward with strength and clarity, you win, no matter what. Because at the end of the day, a real man does not fear losing someone who does not value him. So, if you've noticed these signs, ask yourself, is this relationship still serving me? Or is it time to walk away with my head held high? And remember, the greatest revenge is not anger or jealousy. It's success, peace, and indifference. If this video helped you, subscribe for more insights on Stoicism, relationships, and self-mastery. Drop a comment below. Have you ever dealt with a woman showing these signs? Let's talk about it. Stay sharp, stay strong, and never settle for less than you deserve.